quick round of preferred gender pronouns for speakers. OG?
No preference.
No preference. OO? Any preferred gender pronouns?
No preference.
GG? Leo?
No preference.
Yeah. Any preferred gender pronouns? No? So then, before we start, let's have one more warm round of applause for all the finalists of this Novice final. And I'd like to ask the audience to keep the noise down as much as possible because it might be quite hard for us to hear the teams. And also for the teams, if you're discussing together, also try to keep it as low as possible because we're sitting quite close to you, so it might be distracting. That being said, we'd like to invite the Prime Minister to open the case for opening government. Florian, good luck.
Sorry. Do you want me to stand anywhere?
Sure.
I don't know, it's for you.
Don't worry, the fucker is in.
Oh, fine. For everybody's debate, I'm going to make two main points on two main harms. Firstly, in the harm of the society as a whole, but also on the harms that this motion would bring to individuals all over the world. But before I go into my harms and into my substantive points, let's go to quick definitions. So the doomsday is going to be a definite event. We had it in the info slide. Nothing is going to change it. No matter how many scientists we would tell, how many things would be involved, we can't change it. It's a definite thing. No one can change it. That's it. It's the end. It's in 1 year. We can't change it. The end. If we would publish it, we would publish it to everyone. Obviously, we're not going to do this. We're absolutely against this motion. It's a terrible idea. Let's go into some substantial points. So first, on an individual level, what would this do? On an individual level, we would have severe depression, we would have severe lack of trust, we would have a complete breakdown of what individuals do and what individuals strive for, what individuals want. Let me explain why. Depression. First, people on a general basis, they do things because they want things. They do things because they want to achieve things. We work because we want money. We work because we want to be recognized. We go to debating because we want to improve our skills. We do all these things because we want to get somewhere in life, because we want to reach something in life. If in 1 year everything ends, well, this is just going to break down. This is just going to be completely lost. Everyone is just going to, not everyone is going to be in depression, admittedly, but equally, everyone is going to be less happy with his life. Everyone is going to see that there is less opportunities to be gained, because at the end, after 1 year, everything ends. Like, everything would go to shame. Nothing that you do in this 1 year would actually have any effects, and therefore, people would just simply be unhappy. On an individual basis, what does this mean? Especially for people of lower income, working less uninteresting jobs with less opportunities. Well, for these people, it would just mean they don't get anything at all. Like, it doesn't matter if I do anything right now or I do anything for a year. It doesn't matter, because in 1 year, everything ends. Everything that I achieve in this 1 year is just going to be lost anyway. So therefore, I don't have any reason to believe that I should do anything. I don't have any reason to believe that I should keep on doing the things I'm doing right now, that I should change the things I'm doing right now, because at the end of the day, after 1 year, everything is just going to go to shame anyway. Terrible idea in that case. At the same time, we see that this has severe problems for societies as well. We see that societies are being formed by individuals working together. Societies are basically the sum of interaction between individuals on a general basis. So what does this actually mean for us? Well, we see that everyone is going to be less happy. Societies, what does this mean for societies? Societies are basically going to break down as well. There's going to be no way the societies are going to function. Societies, I'm going to explain, not only on big levels, as of like states, trade unions, etc., they're not going to be working anymore, because no one is going to work anymore, because all these things are just going to break down. Societies don't work because there's just nothing to work for. There's just nothing to gain. Everything is going to shame anyway. At the same time, we see on the lower level, as of groups and families, as of groups and people, they're just going to maybe families are going to work because families are still going to stick together, but friends group, I'm not going to go to some other place to visit that friend that I wanted to see for that long time, because there's just no point. Like, I'm going to die anyway. Like, everyone is going to die anyway. There's no point of doing anything. There's no point of feeling anything. And the reason we have this debate is because we have to think about whether we want these people to be happy. And we have this 1 year, this is a limited time span. So we actually have to think about what this motion, if it would not go through, and if we would publish this information, what this would create for the people. But this is not what we're arguing for. We're saying not publishing this information is going to be leaving the people more happy. Because as I said before, on an individual level, people are just going to be unhappy. People are not going to be satisfied with what they're doing. We're going to have criminality, for example. People are not going to see punishment as a big thing because, well, you can't go 20 years to prison anymore. It just doesn't exist. The maximum is 1 year. The maximum, that's basically it. So I'm not saying that everyone is going to go out and kill everyone. Everyone is going to go out and do all these things. But yes, people are going to be stealing. People might be raping. People might be doing offensive things that they might not be doing otherwise. People might be breaking laws that we all agreed on should be punished. But now punishment just isn't a thing anymore. The biggest punishment that we're going to have is locking people up for 1 year. I mean, come on. Like, that's not that important for many people. So therefore, there are going to be more crimes. People are going to commit more crimes. And it's just going to break down everything as a whole. We're going to basically have chaos. We're going to have a lot of thrift shops. Supermarkets are going to be raided completely. People are going to go drink a lot of alcohol. People are going to go have no moral obligations. People are just going to go out and live whatever they want because at the end of the day, everything ends after 1 year. There's going to be a huge problem with drugs. There's going to be a huge problem with how society works. And then again, this is not only important for individuals, as of individuals being unhappy, as of not doing anything good for individuals, because at the end of the day, these individuals die anyway, but also in a societal impact, as if like societies are just not going to function. I might take openings to introduce our case.
Right. What if an individual had a desire to know that his life was going to end in a year's time? What gives the scientist a unique decision to override this desire?
It's not about the desire. The point is, we have to question what you would do with this decide. Like, if you have to decide to know that your life is going to end in 1 year, the question is, what are you going to do? What is this going to change for you? We believe on the government side that fundamentally this is not going to change anything because at the end of the day, it ends for everyone. This is not the case that we have, for example, you can't compare this with cancer, where people have to decide to know that, well, I have cancer, I'm going to die in 1 year. This is one person. If that one person wants to change, wants to experience something, that's very interesting. He can do all these things. He can go around and travel. He can do all the crazy things that he wanted to do all his life. He wanted to accomplish all these dreams because now he's going to die in 1 year. But in this motion, we don't have the case of one person. We're going to have the case of everyone, literally everyone on this earth. And to be frank, this doomsday is not a process. It's not going to be a long, continuous thing. It's going to be one click and then it's over. Like, it's not going to be anything that is going to be painful. It's not going to be anything that people look up to. It's going to be, and that's it. Bye. The end of the day. So therefore, we don't think that the desire to know whether your life is going to change would change anything, because at the end of the day, even if you have the experience, even if you want to go and travel, if you want to go and do all these experiences that you dreamt of your whole life, you're not going to be able to. Because simply said, there's not going to be airlines providing you with flights, because people are just not going to be working. At the same time, we see you're not going to be living in hotels, you're not going to see other tourist places because they're going to be raided, because they're going to be in chaos, because they're going to be in complete shambles. We see that as this motion is so big and so uniquely and so important for everyone on this earth, it's not only about what happens to individuals and the desire that individuals have, but we have to think of the big thing as a whole. And we know that everything is going to go to scrambles in 1 year. Why not just live 1 year more? Why not just go on with what people are doing already? People might say that they're unhappy with the status quo. You might say that they're unhappy with how things are going right now. But to be honest, they're still a lot happier than if this motion would not go through. They're still a lot happier than with the alternative of publishing this information and bringing everyone down to June, bringing everyone down to shambles, creating a complete chaos society as we've seen it in the Hobbes Leviathan, for example. We see, I've clearly shown you, I've introduced you a case that's a doomsday that is going to be devastating for everyone. We're not going to be able to change this doomsday no matter what is going to happen. My partner is going to expand more on what and how the societal function, existential depression is going to have an impact on everyone in his life. I'm eager to hear what opposition is going to say. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for the speech, and now to open the case for the opening opposition, we'd like to give the floor to the leader of the opposition. Good luck.
Despite the hypothetical nature of this debate, this is a debate that has precedence in reality. When a doctor knows that a patient of terminal cancer has only a year left to live, he has no right to deprive this patient of this necessary information. And through my arguments, I'm going to explain just exactly why. As a doctor, as a scientist, you have no right to deprive individuals of this information when the purpose of your existence is to provide information, and why you have no right to hijack the meaning of their lives. Next, a few points of rebuttal before we go into the case. First of all, they talk about how societal breakdown is inevitable. First of all, the info slide emotion does not mention the inevitable societal breakdown or destruction of law and order, right? The inability of humans to therefore meet any goals that they have left in their life. We see that there are many possible outcomes to society. One possible outcome comes from this story called On the Beach. It's a hypothetical reality of what would the Australian government do in response to inevitable thermonuclear destruction. With 1 year left to live, the Australian government was able to coordinate a nationwide response. It coordinated suicide labs for those who wanted to end their life before the impending pain. If pain is inevitable, these individuals have the right to escape the pain. It allows individuals to have the right to come to their families, to pray, to make their last rites, to conclude their lives in peace and serenity. Ultimately, the fact that we concede that some people will break down, but there is a natural reaction to grief. And we see that there are many other reactions to grief, and that are beyond this first initial reaction, people will have the means to find serenity and determination. On the next level, they seek to use this utilitarian idea that this happiness immediately after you tell someone this information is the only thing that matters. Ultimately, we think that utilitarianism is maybe one possible perspective and approach that we can take towards this as well. And ultimately, the utilitarian argument fails because it is to the individual to determine the happiness of their life. And the individual, as a scientist, has no ability to determine the actual happiness or unhappiness that people will gain. And it is unright and unjust to use this perspective to determine the debate. Right. Now, I'm going to talk about how exactly this debate should be considered. This debate cannot be considered purely from the point of the cessation of all human life and existence, and the point at which all life is ended and where morality is meaningless. This debate has been considered in the now, in the point where human morality is still of meaning, where humans still have desires. We have to acknowledge the desires and the wants that people have today, and cannot debate purely from the point where these desires are gone and therefore meaningless. Right? Now let's talk about what is the nature of human morality and human civilization. We believe that human civilization and humans as a whole are premised on this idea of continuity. This idea that the way that we make all decisions now is based on the fact that we can continue making decisions in a day, in a month, in a year, or for as long as we reasonably think is possible. It is why we think of it as a human tragedy when a man at 20 years old, well before the prime of his life, is killed in a car crash. It is why we inform a patient with terminal cancer that he only has a year to live, because continuity determines how we think now, and we should consider this continuity in the way that we make decisions. As a scientist, you have a unique moral duty to this approach, to the concept of continuity, because the whole basis of science, the whole basis of medicine, geology, any scientific field whatsoever, is to consider this continuity of the human race and the advancement of the human race, and to tackle this question of continuity. And it's abhorrent for scientists to abandon this moral duty to ensure that people have the best answer to the question of continuity. Now, I'm going to move on to a few more arguments from outside today, sure.
Unlike the example of a cancer patient, this has a societal level of an issue because every single individual is affected, meaning that any individual action also has an effect on the other individuals.
Alright, I was planning on bringing this up later, but I'll bring this up now. First of all, complete inevitability does not equate to complete utility. Right? The nature of the doomsday or extinction event or whatever does have a non-zero event of some survivors even of some survivors existing, right? And this necessity of the doomsday allows the possibility of breakthroughs that would not have happened before. And this non-zero chance of some people surviving, therefore, increases in a huge proportion by simply allowing people to plan some kind of response. Now, we believe that even if the breakthrough chance is zero, people have the right to struggle. There's a reason why we don't euthanize all babies with deformities. There's a reason why we don't euthanize any individual that goes through a car crash that leaves them completely paralyzed. Because even though the quality of their life might be demeaned and degraded, we recognize that they have the right to struggle, they have the right to fight on regardless of how little or how meaningless the chance of survival is. Right? We recognize that, and ultimately, the collective nature of this information is something that allows for solutions to historical issues that we've always had. What would happen to the Muslim world, or to the Christian world, or to people of all ethnicities if they realized that all of these divisions between all humankind was meaningless? Because all the meaning that we have left in humanity was only a year left. We believe there is a possibility for collective action towards scientific breakthroughs, towards societal breakthroughs, to actually make something of the human race that only has a year left to live. And it is important for the scientists to decide that all progress should be ended, when the purpose of science is to create progress as a whole. Now, next of all, we want to talk about this idea of what is the meaning of a life, and who gets to determine this meaning, right? Ultimately, the meaning of a life has been debated for a millennia. People have been arguing about this for years and years, but the only conclusion is that one's life meaning is their own to determine, and that ultimately each person gets to create their own meaning in their lives. By deciding to deprive the information that the person needs to determine the meaning of their life, you are hijacking this meaning, and you are preventing them from determining the meaning of their own life. And you yourself have decided to determine the meaning of their lives. It is the moral duty, and it is the burden of side government to decide, to prove to us why the single lone scientist has the right to determine the life of all humankind, when we have never in society ever been able to support this. And as a society, we have pushed towards means that allow for self-determination of individuals. Ultimately, we see that, on the last note, let's talk about possible outcomes in society. There are many possible outcomes about what would happen if doomsday were to face society. Break down society is one possibility. There are many other possibilities like nationwide coordination, and yet on the individual level, there are different possibilities as well. Knowing that you live on borrowed time could allow you to complete whatever it was that you sought to complete in the remainder of your life. We believe that even if infrastructure prevented you from completing the ultimate goal of becoming a best publishing author, even then, you have the ability to complete your last novel, to share it with at least one person, right? And we are the side that defends this last novel of humanity, this last breath that humanity gets to take. And we are the side that ultimately stand against any chance to deprive this last breath on being used on anything more than this last year of meaningless life. We think that ultimately, it is the nature of human life to be able to struggle, regardless of how meaningless that struggle is, because it is humans that give the struggle their meaning. The scientist as alone cannot decide that this struggle is meaningless and has no right to do so. We are the side that's proud to defend humanity's last breath. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the speech. Then we go back to open the argument and give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister. Good luck.
Okay, are you ready? So opposition case basically relies on the premise that given that we are allowing this information to be public, we are going to have some sort of order response that's going to increase the likelihood of, first of all, having a better chance of survival, right? Second of all, having some sort of meaningful plan that can increase the meaning of the time that we are left, right? What they failed to actually prove to us is why it is that we have any incentive as an individual to act in a group that has this sort of future action set, except for relying on a novel that tells you, well, in an idealized world, that might happen, right? I'm going to prove you exactly why it is that that's not going to happen, because humans are fundamentally pretty selfish, and we don't really see how it is that we have to care about other people, especially when we know that our time is limited. Meaning that every second that I'm using on helping someone else get what they want, I can't get what I want, because I have so limited time, right? So that's going to be very important. Okay, so what is that, and what is it that we hear? Okay, so they're saying that basically the whole case, this principal argument of we're depriving the right for people to know that their end is near, right? But we also see that a lot of people don't want to know if they are diagnosed with things, or they don't want to know that they have an increased exposure of death at a certain age, because they don't really want to deal with that. And by actually allowing this information to be publicized, you're also removing the right for these people to remain in the unknown, right? We're saying that this type of people, person, right, that obviously don't want to deal with the fact that the world is going to end, is going to be overwhelmed by the fact that 100% certainty the world is going to end, and we think that that's going to create a lot of societal issues, right? So what we're saying, what we're saying today is that given that we're creating more unhappiness by actually publishing this information, right? We don't think that we should actually publish it. It isn't about whether or not we have a moral duty to do this, because I think that we're like taking away the freedom of choice from the individuals in the society on both sides of the house. One by saying that you don't have information, one by saying that you are forced this information onto you. And we think that that's also very, very illegitimate in that sense, right? Okay, so what is that we see? Why is it that it's so bad that people get this information? Okay, so we see that people who know that they have a limited amount of time need to now readjust the way that they're going to make actions, right? Meaning that they now no longer have the meaning of doing things that are long term, right? So when you work, you're trying to save up for like future purchases, right? So a lot of the work that you're doing is because you have to have a financial stability in the later of your life or in the future generations, right? Generating savings. We see that now we no longer have this incentive, meaning that people are more likely to just not want to work, especially if they already have savings, right? We see that society on a general level is dependent on the fact that people are willing to do this work, willing to give up their current pleasure in the moment for doing this. We see that when people have a fixed amount of limited time left, they are unlikely to want to do this because they don't find any meaning on the work that they do. We're not saying that people won't find meaning in anything. We're saying that they won't work anymore, and society needs like a large portion of the population to actually work, to have meaningful progress, or actually just function, right? So we're saying that by having most people know this, we're already limiting the amount of things that you can even do to find meaning in your life, because people don't want to work, right? We already had that in the PM speech, and we didn't really hear a clear response for that. So we're not talking about like on an individual level, should you know if you're going to die or not. I think that it's pretty clear that if it was only one individual that was going to die, it's fairly obvious that we should give them that information, right? But when that choice is having an effect on everybody else, because you're affecting so many people that on a societal level you're changing how it is that society functions, I think that we have a moral duty to preserve like the integrity of the whole society as a whole and create as much happiness as we can in general, and that's the main goal that we want to, right? So we don't think that that's the right measurement that they're giving us offside. Okay, so what do we get? Okay, so humans have to have have continuity, and they need to know those types of things, right? I think that on a basic level, that plays into our favor, right? That's because people are now going to readjust the continuity of their actions, meaning that they're going to be less productive. Okay, so let's get into my substances then about existential depression. Okay, so how is it that you think that most people respond, like in a general way, at the knowledge that your life is going to end in 1 year and there's absolutely nothing you can do about that? I think that you have two likely responses, right? First of all, you might have some people who want to make the most of their remaining time, right? The people who want to like go out and travel, meet those people that they didn't see before, or something like that, right? We think that even if this fraction of people is pretty large, I think that the more people who fall into this category, the more detrimental it will be to the society as a whole, right? Because those people want to spend the last of the time having a loving community around them and like having productivity with the people that they actually matter to most to them, and they'll not want to work, right? So this type of person will no longer want to actually contribute to society, thereby decreasing the productivity of society as a whole, right? So that's the first group, right? The second group is most likely going to just keep on working, right? We think that the people who are going to keep on working, the people that are necessary to actually make society function, the people that are doing that are going to have a very depressed life, right? Because they're doing work that for them as a person is not going to be meaningful, and they're consuming a lot of their time making other people have to do things. Okay, I'll take opening first.
Right. What is the purpose of having people sacrifice their time to continue protecting infrastructure when the infrastructure is already doomed to die anyways?
Okay, so we're not saying that you need to protect the infrastructure. We're saying that we're creating a general society where you have a more general happy population, right? We're saying that we're creating a negative loss of creating a loss of happiness in the whole society by doing this thing, right? And we say that the legacy thing and like the struggle of humanity, I don't think that matters that much in the case that like everything gets obliterated and we don't have anything left. And they can't really just say, oh well, some people might survive, and then we can still just rebuild society and we have a legacy remaining, right? Because I think that fundamentally goes against the motion by saying that we have an inevitable cause of doomsday where everybody has to die. If we actually had something like, if you had a realistic chance of doing that, I think that we would probably want to fight that, right? But like as a scientist, the info slide already told us that we are absolutely certain that there's no actual way to stop this, right? So it's almost like the case of like a planet crashing into our planet in 1 year's time, and there's no way that we can stop that, right? Because we have no limits of technology that can actually do that. I think that the legacy thing doesn't stand because like that's meaningless for people once they're dead, right? So we want people to be the most happy. Okay, so we think that people are going to be more criminalized, and so people fulfilling their own happiness is going to limit the happiness of other people, right? So we think that people are going to be more criminal because they no longer see the trade-off as a big of a deal, right? Because the highest payment that you can pay is like dying at most a year earlier or losing your freedom of choice at that point in time, right? But we think that that's a very small fraction of your time compared to the pleasure that you might gain, or like comparatively in what you had in the old world, right? So we think that more people are likely to make like criminal actions. We never probably dealt with this by saying that if people are going to make more criminal actions, we think that the people doing these things are actively harming other people, right? Creating a net loss of happiness over there. So the problem is that opening opposition tries to make this about like the individual and the individual actions. But we're saying on the government side that it's the accumulated actions of groups of people that are affecting society as a whole, and we have a responsibility to create as much happiness as possible. Thank you very much. Please vote down.
Thank you very much for that speech. And to close the first half of this debate, I'd like to give the floor to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
So the government in this debate presents us this world, this case, where there's really just one outcome to the doomsday, one outcome for the society, the whole destruction of the society, the infrastructure, the meaning of life, the happiness of people. But we think this is actually not true. The doomsday has not only one world, not only one scenario that is outcome. We don't think there's just a zero chance of any survival for the human race. We think, and we prove that even if there is a zero chance, how people still have the right to their self-determination, how the society is not going to break down. And on the other side, we will show you how this world, and there is at least a small chance of a scientific breakthrough, of something that can give a meaning towards society, is much, much better than this side that is presented by the government. And we will show how the right to struggle can actually give you a meaning in life. But before I'm going to explain this whole mechanism, let me get to a few points of rebuttal. So, what we get by the opening government is that the whole society is just going to break down, right? We have a society that collapses and gets depressed, where everyone is just giving up their work and stops doing things. But we think there's a probability that a lot of people are going to react in this way. But Kai just proved to you how there's also how this feeling of a chance, how the right to actually coordinate and do something, like get together and collect your actions, can give a meaning to the life of people. So the meaning of life to a lot of people is not just happiness, just this expectation that everything is going to be good in the future, but actually struggle can be a meaning as well. Like problems can give you a meaning in life, something that gives you a reason to live up to. So if we look at the doctor, right, that gives a patient a diagnosis and tells him, you have only 1 year left to live, how likely is it is it really that this person is just falling into depression and giving up everything that person has in their life? We think it's much more likely that this person is going to fight, and that this fight can actually be a meaning towards your life. We don't say that they ultimately are going to be happy, but we think a meaning, something that gives you actually something to work towards to, is much more worth than happiness. So I think Kai proved really good how people actually have the right of self-determination, and that we think the real reason is like, how can the real question is, how can the scientists actually define what the meaning of life for so many people is? And Kai proved you that it's much more important that we value the right to know the dignity of people rather than those of the people that don't want to know that such an event is going to happen. But this is just only one side, so where we actually have zero chance. But we think there's also a possibility, the possibility of the survival of the human race. So we believe that even if there's just a small chance, a collective action, something that rallies people, incredibly increases the chance of the survival of the human race. So we have a possibility of scientific breakthroughs. And just to give you a few examples, so if we look at what scientists are at the moment working on, especially if we look at space development, we can see that there are already some projects into place that train humans in Arizona to live on the Mars, where we create conditions how it's actually living on the Mars. So we think once we all know that doomsday is coming, and we can agree, okay, well, this is going to happen on the planet Earth. But what about the possibility of the survival of the human race on Mars or in other ways, you know? We think this is much more important and much more likely that people get together, collected by one problem. So getting together and working towards something. Yes, please.
If I'm a normal middle-class person and I know I'm going to die, why won't I just spend my remaining time with my loved ones instead of working with something that's seemingly meaningless?
Yeah, we agree that there are like some people that are going to react in this way. But why does the government assumes that every person is going to react in this way? A struggle of survival can be a much better meaning for your life that actually collects people where the government can coordinate people, okay, on the one side, where those people just want to give up on everything, falling into depression and just spending their time with their family. But we think that there's also the possibility of scientists, other creators, engineers getting together and finding solutions, that the meaning to your life can be finding solutions. So why is it even important that we survive as a human race? We think that we have such a great history that we created here on this world, and this should be valued to live further. We have the human race has the desire of survival, and this is much more important than people that can fall into the depression by this. So if we just compare the two sides, so on the one side we have a world where there is zero chance of survival, but still people have the desire to know what they are getting into, because this whole world we are living on, the whole meaning is based on the assumption of continuity, and the scientist has the possibility to tell these people and give them the right to self-determination. And on the other side, we have this world where there is actually some chance, and where people can get together to find solutions, and we think this is much more likely that there is like a collective action, that there's some coordination, and different people will react in different ways. Therefore, we are really happy to oppose the government.
Thank you very much for that speech, and I'd like to thank all speakers for what they verified in the first half of this debate. And now to open the second half of this debate, I'd like to give the floor to the member of the government. Good luck.
I will first give some quick points of rebuttal, which will directly flow into my argumentation, in which I will present to you 3 possible scenarios which will happen under this motion, and how all 3 these are bad, therefore why we should withhold this information. So, first of all, quick rebuttals to opening opposition. They say that this whole situation will be eventually just a struggle for the human race, and how it actually makes it thrive more. We say that this is an unsolvable problem. An unsolvable problem isn't a struggle, it's the end. Doomsday is the end, and there's no need to actually avoid it. Because struggle means that you have a chance to make it. Under this motion, you do not have this chance. There's no way in avoiding this whole situation. Also, they say that people are going to, scientists going to further try to develop technology to make sure that like at least some percentage of the human race survives. We say that they won't do that because they know that this, with what they propose, people will know that they only have 1 year left. If you only have 1 year left in your life, you're going to try to make the most of it, and this is actually very, very bad, not only for the individual, but for society, in general. Because you will no longer have these long-term goals of actually developing and actually thriving. This way it will actually have no meaning at all, and this is what, no thank you, this is what I'm going to do. But they also say that society won't collapse after all. We say that it will go collapse because people will try to do whatever they want to do. Like they will try to make their goals happen. They will try to get their dreams going on. And this way, the whole juridical system and the whole police system is going to try to do the same. There will be no order in society because they will try to do, as the rest of the society tries to do, try to make the most of their time, which is actually really, really bad. And this is the first scenario. People will try to make the most of their time on planet Earth. We can kind of agree on that. Because they know that it's limited, it's no longer available for them. But this is very, very bad, because this way, if we, as scientists, tell them that they no longer have a life on here after a year, people will start massively panicking. This will eventually lead to massive chaos and the whole disruption of society, and the world eventually will descend to anarchy and disorder. Why is that so? Because people in status quo don't do all the stupid stuff, no thank you, they dream to do. They don't do all their things they wanted to do because they are aware of the long-term consequences which will happen to them if they don't go to their job regularly, if they don't provide for their family. But now they lose all these long-term perspectives, and now they will think like, oh wow, well I no longer will have, I won't see my children grow up, I won't see any of that, why should I care, I should just go ahead and do whatever I damn well pleased to do. As a result of that, we will have an increase in criminality. As I even said in my rebuttal, this is not only because people will no longer have social constructs, but because the whole juridical and police system will collapse, because they are people as well. They will think, why did I sacrifice my life for that? Now I can do whatever I want to do. And this will just fuel the anxiety in people, and this will make their last days on earth basically miserable. Why is that so? Because we as people find comfort in our day-to-day daily lives. We find comfort in our normality. And we actually find more happiness in that. We find more comfort and happiness in stability. And with this, with introducing, with sharing this information to them, we actually take away this last stray hope, this last stray comfort from them. And this is incredibly bad because this will just lead to more anxiety, more fear in the society. And yes, as I said, people are just going to lose, the last stray throw of hope, because they will lose the social safety we as a society normally grant them. And not only will they know that they will die, they will know that it will happen in 1 year, which is actually not that much of a time, so they will just panic even more and more and more. So, however, yeah.
Alright, we already talked about how grief is just the first step. Why did the right assume that every other step, like serenity or determination, will not happen and therefore destroy the possibility of it ever happening?
It will not happen because people, the natural response to people knowing that they will die is to try to make the most of it. This is what my whole case is about. They would try to make the most of it, they won't really give grief for some time, and they would then go eventually kind of crazy. And as I said, society will eventually collapse before we even die, and this is incredibly bad. So, even if we take kind of the stronger case that they all will eventually, like, yes, go all out and go to Hawaii and try to achieve their dreams, and it will be like at least some sort of like comfort in that at least I got to try that one thing I always dreamed of trying. I'm going to quickly tell you, dreams are essentially meaningless in this situation. Because you kind of always dreamed of going to Hawaii, and when you eventually go, you realize that it's just not like what you dreamed it would be, because we have kind of a warped perception of reality. It's not going to be like what you dreamed of it to be, and it's also not going to be what you dreamed of to be, because people are, the whole society is in chaos, and every place is basically destroyed, and yeah, fulfilling the dream actually loses the charm of this dream. And even if it's nice for 1 year, even if you do and it's not, even if you go and it's nice, 1 year is still so much time. You can't live your life to the fullest for 1 whole year. Basically, you can do for 2 months, and then you have 10 months left in absolute despair and desire. So, as I said, also people. Yeah, so this way we will have the whole society in chaos and despair. On their side of the house, I presented the scenarios. People will be sad, people will be in chaos, in anxiety, in the fear for this whole year. On our side of the house, we give people this last phrase of comfort. We give people the actual chance to pass gracefully and to actually pass the way they deserve as people, not in chaos and not in disruption. Thank you very much. Very well.
Thank you very much for the speech. Then we go to the opposition, and give the floor to the member of the opposition. So,
All right, thank you, dear floor. I will start my speech from my own arguments that I hope will show you why the government side actually failed to prove their points. And I will start off by briefly mentioning that actually the government side has failed to fully define the motion, as we do not know how well this information will be published. It was implied that it will be published through public channels and to the whole population, so let's take them at their best. But I just want to point out that it was not done fully, nor was it said how that information will look like. Will it be fully said what was done to discover that information, or is it just going to be one headline saying that the world is ending? So let's take them at their best, and let's imagine that the information is presented quite rationally. So first of all, I would like to start off with the opening opposition's argument on the struggle. I would like to say that the closing opposition sees it as from a totally different point. What we do believe in, that is, no thank you, it's not a struggle. It's not just a struggle. This is not only a negative thing. What we believe that this is, it could be looked at as a very positive thing. Why? Because this could be a very good catalyst for a new development, a new start, a new fresh, a better society, a new hope for actually more happiness for the future generations and for the future. And it's not just simply a struggle that everybody has to come out and just wait until the end. Now, moving on to my second argument. I believe, and I propose that people are actually ultimately altruistic. They are not just selfish. Why? Because we evolved. We evolved as humans, and to evolve, from the natural evolution and selection, we had this trait of empathy. Why? Because to ensure that our offspring survive, we needed to know when they actually feel bad. And how did early humans understood that? Through empathy. So today, when we will know what is going on, we will not just say, fuck everybody. No, we know that they will feel bad, that we will feel bad, that we need to do something. We are not primitive people that don't care about others. We are a society. We have universities. We have moral codes that will not just be thrown out because the world is ending. Nobody wants to, nobody actually knows what will happen when the world will end. Where will they go out? Nobody will actually risk throwing out the whole their reputation, all the things that they believed in, all their moral codes, just because the world is ending. It's not a case for selfishness. No, thank you. Now, moving on, and I believe that this actually rebutes the argument of anarchy. Yes, I agree with the government that a part of society will be anarchistic, and because they will be depressed. But the majority of society, those that will actually decide what will happen and how will everything look like, they will cooperate. They will go together to do something. Because nobody wants to die, no thank you, in pain and being left alone and feeling betrayed. Now, moving on to my third argument, it's about cooperation. Now, today, what we see, that in status quo, there are tons of couch surfing programs, volunteering programs, and it shows that people actually, when they dream of going to Hawaii, what they do if they are poor, they cooperate with others. They find couch surfers, they found someone that has a car and can take them there, and this is exactly what will happen in this scenario. People that cannot afford to fly or do something there, they will cooperate, because you're not just only one person that wants to go to Hawaii, there are tens of them. That's how they will go. Because that's the only way to actually feel happiness. Because what? If you're depressed, no thank you. You're just going to stay depressed. No, that's not the natural state, and that's not what people want to feel. Now, moving on to my fourth argument, is that, well, this is an extreme situation. And in extreme situations, our human capacity and potential is always extended, because we have plenty of cases where in danger, for example, when mother sees that her child is in danger, she suddenly gets a rush of strength, and she can, no thank you, she can rush in, she can stop a lot of forces. For example, we all know the case when a child was crushed under the car and the mother just lifted it up. Usually it's impossible, but when there's an extreme case, people do show that there's some undisclosed potential for human brain. And this is why we cannot accept the government stance that, well, it's impossible to change it. We always have to try. Even if it actually will be ultimately at the end impossible, we still need to try, because we never know what will actually be at the end. Now, I will take any POIs.
Okay,
yes?
so given that you're saying that people are so altruistic naturally, why is it that the capitalism exists? Why do we even have laws in the first place to prevent people from doing bad things?
Sorry, what exists?
Since people are so altruistic, why is it that we need laws to prevent people from doing bad things?
Yes, so two things. Firstly, we have the collective action problem, right? Something that you mentioned, that people like to free ride. And this is why we accept that there are people that do not follow these codes, but as I mentioned, they're a minority. Because the majority of people do abide by laws and have laws so that they would know, how to distinguish between that minority and the majority. So I don't really see how the government during this debate actually showed that their points are valid and that it's actually sensible to vote for this motion. So I would suggest that we oppose this motion and that there's nothing left for it to stand. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the speech, and to close the debate for the proposition side, I'd like to give the floor to the Speaker of the Opposition.
Dear Father, the objective of this whole debate was how to make the last year of survival on Earth for people as good as possible. I believe both sides can agree on that, however, both sides have different ideas about it. We have three main clashes clashes in this debate. One, what is the moral duty towards people? Two, what does it mean to care about people? Three, how will people react to the revealing of the information? Now I'm going to explain to you why we win all of these three clashes. First of all, let's start with OO. OO brings you this case that, for example, if we reveal this information, government is going to provide services for the people to make the last year better for them, and there's also going to be this collective action to improve the earth, to basically care about the others and make this last year as soothing experience as possible. We prove to you why is it not going to be the case, why my partner tells you that people who are working in the government, for the judicial system, the scientists, everyone, the brains in the society and the executive actors are in the end people just like the rest of the society. That's why they are going to react just like the rest of the society. They are not going to care for this better good of the whole group. They are going to care only about themselves. No, thank you. Second point. They say that we have this moral duty towards people. We agree, however, we define this moral duty differently. Because the moral duty is to make the situation the best for the people as possible. We agree on opposition on that. However, we believe that making the situation the best for the society as possible is not revealing the information. Why is it so? My partner explains to you that this way we make people avoid unnecessary pain and frustration. Therefore, their overall standard of life is higher than in case of opposition when we reveal the information. Another thing, they say we are depriving people of the meaning of life because the meaning of life is struggling. However, my partner tells you explicitly, and I will repeat that, what is a struggle? A struggle is an attempt to overcome something when you have smaller or lower chances to actually succeed. This is not a struggle. This is impossible to avoid, that you cannot struggle against something inevitable. Therefore, on our side, people keep struggling in their regular peaceful life, so they have the meaning that the opposition wants them to remain. On their side, people are faced with something that they absolutely cannot overcome, so they are overwhelmed, therefore they are less happy. Then again, OO tries to present different scenarios. I will take you in a second. That people are not necessarily going to panic. We explain to you why they are very likely to panic by making more of an elaborate case how human brain work and how in the end we only care about the very moment. And further, we also elaborate on different scenarios on other possible outcomes. For example, why actually going and fulfilling all your dreams is not in the end as satisfying as you would think. Yes, please.
Right, we've talked about how there's a moral justification for people to know even if society does break down. Can you be the first person from your batch to deal with what if society doesn't break down? What moral justification do you have?
We explain to you different scenarios of what's going to happen. We explain to you why the society is the most likely to break down, because we actually analyze how human psyche works. Then we say that if the society is not going to break down, my partners give you the argument about fulfilling your dreams and how after 2 months you are basically left with all your dreams fulfilled, which were not really that satisfying, and you are basically waiting 10 months for your death. So even if people are not going to panic, how is it making it better for them? So in the end, us against OO, we show you why not revealing this information is the best for the people by basically rebutting everything that they say. Then comes CO. They say that government didn't define how the information would be revealed. I would like to know that it's actually the duty of the opposition, because we don't want to reveal this information in the first place, so why should we care about how it's going to be revealed? I think it's the case against OO, not the government, so, well. Then they say that people are empathetic. Once again, I will explain that, yes, people are empathetic when their basic needs are fulfilled. Their basic needs is not fulfilled when they know that they are going to die because they have no sense of safety. Therefore, there is no place for them to be empathetic and care about other people. Why is it so? Look at the wars, for example. People are able to kill their friends, people are able to kill their family if it increases their chance of survival. Because in the end, we care only about ourselves. Mothers were able to kill their children during World War II, during the siege in Russia, just to survive, just to be... People are able to commit atrocities when their basic safety is not guaranteed to them. Therefore, the argument about empathy completely fails in here. Then they say people care about reputation. What is reputation? Reputation is what other people think about you. In 1 year, there is going to be no one on earth. Why would you care what other people would think about you if you are going to be dead and everyone is going to be dead? Therefore, again, irrelevant argument. Yes, please.
So, but in a sense, would you agree that most of the people are religious, and when they are religious, they do care about their reputation because they do believe in afterlife?
But reputation is a phenomenon in society. Why do you bring religion right now if it was not touched upon in none of the speeches of any of the speaker of the opposition? Reputation is not about religion. And yeah, then they said about extended potential. Yeah, people do have extended potential in crisis situations. They have extended potential for survival. Therefore, they are more likely to do things that they would not do in regular life. Therefore, we have bigger disorder, chaos, and everything that my partner told you about. So, in the end, on their side, we have chaos, disorder, frustration, which leads to general unhappiness and lower quality of life of people during this last year of lives. On our side, though, people are living better last year of their life. It's just a peaceful, regular life. Why is it better? Because everyday life, yes, sometimes it's boring, yes, sometimes it's sad, but it also brings you a lot of joyful moments, a lot of sources of happiness. Therefore, in general, in the end, people are ending up more happy, and yeah, overall the quality of life remains higher. Therefore, we as a government, we achieve our goal of making this situation the best possible for the people. Therefore, we will win this debate. When it comes to CG against OG, we believe that we present you 3 possible scenarios and to prove you how they are equally bad. We elaborate further on how human brains work in this situation, and therefore we bring you more detailed analysis of this case. For all these reasons, we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. And now to close this debate, we'd like to give the floor to the opposition whip. Good luck.
Hello everyone. So I would like to start my speech with the analysis itself. And today they were presented quite a few similar points from whole the team of government. So the first thing they were saying, and the first point of them, was happiness. Like, let us leave people 1 year of happy life. They don't want to know about it. They will be depressed. We don't need to overstress them. But unfortunately, our government forgot that this is a psychology of each person. We know that we keep all the best in our life for next day. We think like, oh, I will save this money for this trip to Paris where I always wanted to go when I have better time for this, when my kids grow up, when something better happens to me. But we, with information about the situation which is going to happen, just want to show people that there won't be better day sometime. We show them that you should live now the way you want to, and no thank you. And don't postpone your dreams, your goals for some better time, because it may not appear at all. So hurry up to live. The next point was about chaos. But we as a government, when we take the decision to announce it, we understand all the outcomes and possibilities of this decision. Therefore, it doesn't mean that the political system stops to work. It doesn't mean that the defense system stops to work. It doesn't mean that we don't have our military powers or other weapons. It means that we as a government take the decision and count on all possible effects. And it means, no thank you, that we will provide the security for society in the specific conditions they are going to live. And moreover, we have already some unsuccessful stories in history when huge disasters happened and government preferred not to tell about them. Let's take an example of Chernobyl. People didn't know what is going on living in 100 meters near this station. But when some of them found out this information officially from government, they just didn't care. They decided that they want to stay there because they were old people and they just preferred to stay there. Okay, this is their choice to stay. But there were other people who didn't know this information, and if they knew, they could save their lives and not suffer from cancer from all their life after that. In our scenario, we also see that if some people knew this information, they would have a choice not to take this information into consideration. Other people would go to Paris, would say their parents that they love them, would change their attitude to children, and so on. No, thank you. Another thing was that there won't be goals for people to live. But again, this is a psychology of the person. To postpone everything. But if you know that everything is right now, you will think more about the sense of your life. You will think like, what is the thing which I would like to achieve in this world most of all? And you will do all the best which you could do to achieve this goal. And you will actually think about the sense of your life. Because when you are 20 or 25, you might think that, I'm a student now, I have so many times, I don't need to think about sense of my life now. But when you're in extreme situation, your brain just starts working and you don't waste time for parties only and so on. No, thank you. The most important thing is, and this motion, is not how to make our life in this year most happy. The thing is how how will it influence the whole society in general? And here is the winning case of my teammate, who said that first of all, we should consider it not as the end of the world. We should consider it as the new start of society. Because first of all, when apocalypse happens, it actually means to many people that, hey, we as a society, we as a population of the world probably were doing something wrong. Maybe we were really too cruel to the environment, maybe we didn't care about other people, about honest policy in the world, about a lot of global problems, and that is why the life on the earth is actually going to end. And if we want to continue our life, we can move to other spaces, to discover new places to live, but we should know, understand that the way we used to live is not going to work. And we are not that powerful that nature cannot hurt us and punish. So if we want to continue our life, first of all, we should change our attitude to everything that surrounds us and just find a new solution for us. Because if we believed all the time that when someone says that you will not win or something is end, the world would be destroyed long ago, no thank you. Because just remember all the movies about apocalypses. There was always a situation like the majority tells you, oh, that's all, nothing is going to work out. But there were one or two heroes and really leading, outstanding persons who cooperated together and find out new solutions to this situation, and they actually changed dramatically those situations where no one else saw a solution. So we think that, no thank you, outstanding people of this world can always cooperate and can always find another solution. And another thing which was also importantly mentioned by my teammate is that in extreme situation, our brain, so in usual situation, our brain works at least maximum 5% of their capability. But in extreme situation, your brain starts making actually miracles inside, because your potential grows enormously. And we can find such solutions that we could never think of. And of course, the attitude and relationships between people in society will be also changed. Because you will understand that now we are all in one boat, and instinct to survive is the basic instinct which unites all of us. And if we want to survive, we need to cooperate, we need to think together. And now it's not a time for us to argue, to steal from each other, to quarrel or whatever. If we want to survive, we need to help each other. At least based on this, we will help each other, and we will do all the best for us to survive. Therefore, all the best qualities of humans' soul and character will be maximized, and will start cooperating together to survive and to find a new way of our life. Thank you.